So, hello, Dr. Gilbert. I'm doing this video based on, I want to thank you for meeting with me yesterday. I hope the lighting on this is all right. I have a newfound appreciation for people who work on sets and set up lighting. I have just a collage of lights around me right now, and I hope the lighting looks okay. Again, I want to thank you for meeting with me, and after we concluded our discussion, I felt it was a good talk. That I felt that to really explain why the totality of what I'm offering the university, and not just your university but all the universities, I needed to explain what we're going to walk through, right? Because it's not just I come in and do a talk and then I leave. That's not going to be it. That's, quite honestly, in my experience doing this 16 years, that's not going to be effective. The students need to see me a number of times, I believe, for them to really grasp this, especially coming from where they're coming from. I call into universities all the time now, schools, high schools, universities, and what I've noticed, especially yesterday, I called into one university. There was a young man who was a college student answering the phone for one of the provosts. And what I've noticed is he was just so innocent. Young man, so innocent. He was so anxious to help me. You can see he's just a good-hearted young person. And that's what I find with all the kids that I work with, whether they're in elementary school, even all the way up to college. And at my age, now 56 years old, I realize that children are young and they're innocent and they're impressionable, and they have such high hopes for their future that in my experience, I see a lot of similarities in the college kids. I see their innocence, the same innocence that the college kids have. Sometimes the elementary school kids are just as innocent and just as wide-eyed and anxious to learn about this, right? So the reason I'm saying this is that in my experience, the content that works on the elementary school kids works just as well on the college kids. All right, I just wanted to make sure. That's why I'm going through this. And I remember when I was at Northeastern and they had this thing called the African American Institute, and Wendy Williams was around the same time as me, and there was a bunch of, and they would bring people into the African American Institute to talk to us all the time. One time they brought Stokely Carmichael, and he came in and I sat right in the front. It was like I'm sitting here and he's sitting right here, and I literally could reach out and touch him. And he was sitting there talking to us, and he was I was pumping him up. He was literally saying that. And I remember there was a woman named Miss Petty, who she's probably still there. You could probably call, and Miss Petty is probably still there. Because I've met young people who come from Northeastern and told me they interacted with Miss Petty. Miss Petty was like everyone's mother. We loved her. If I heard that something happened to Miss Petty right now, I would go to Boston and it would be a problem for whoever bothered. We loved, and I remember when he was doing that, Stokely Carmichael was there, and I turned around and looked at Miss Petty, and her face was like shaking her head, yes, like she was completely behind, violence for violence. I'm not talking about violence, but I mean, when I saw her do that, and I looked back and saw that it was Stokely Carmichael that she was shaking her head like this, yes to, the way my mother would do when she wanted me to, do something. That was it. That weaponized me. That radicalized me, to the point where that and other experiences like that have driven me to do what I'm doing now. So what I'm saying is that being in class and learning and being confused by my engineering teachers, that was a long-term stop. But seeing these people like Stokely Carmichael come down and talk to us in the African American Institute or in the L building. I can't remember. I even remember the L Center, and we would come and it would be a big auditorium and there'd be hundreds of us in there, and we'd be listening to those were the ethos of my college upbringing. And that's the spirit that I hope to be able to do this in, right? So I just wanted to put that out there, that these things have serious impact on the students. They don't understand it at that time, and they're very impressionable. But so when I created this, and I had the thought to do that, of all people, me doing something like this, it was because I remember how those experiences affected me. And I don't want to lecture you, so I want to explain what it is I'm offering, right? First off, if I knew, and I don't know if I said this to you, if I knew that there was a thing called a disruptive innovation when I was in elementary school or junior high school or high school, if I knew that then, while I was in college, I would have made completely different decisions. I would have associated with different people. I probably wouldn't have gone to any parties. I would have probably 70 to 80% of my choices would have been different had I known about this, excuse me, before or when I was in college. So that's just the beginning. So what this is, right? What I'm proposing is a 4-part lecture series, if that's possible, and I'm proposing this to every college that I'm hoping to work with, where I explain these individual tools, and I number them. I know this is a lot of information here, but this number 1 is called the value matrix, right? This is the actual formula. This is something called a logic statement, and I knew you as a doctor, I remember speaking with so many doctors throughout my tenure in education, and they say that they studied the if-then logic statement in psychology. They said that they studied this, right? So that was very interesting to me, because logic is the secret thought process of innovation. And that's what we're trying to get our children to do, to innovate new disruptive technology, right, in any industry. So this is something that we can, so this is the logic statement that we will work with your kids, and we have a deck, and there's a whole PowerPoint presentation that I would, in a perfect world, come up and perform this, and we would walk them through the mechanics, the thought process mechanics of reverse engineering, which is a very powerful thing, the other great innovators, and so that they can see what they were thinking when they came up with their ideas for their new disruptors. And we could go through a whole series of this. You could literally spend months just using logic statements, and this is my logic statement. I invented this, right? After years and years of working in the industry and seeing the different revisions for different technologies and seeing the thought process of it, I invented this logic statement, which you can use to transcribe the thought process of innovation. So your kids can say, they can take the lamp, or they can take the watch, or they can take the light bulb, and they can figure out whoever invented it, how they were thinking, and their thought process based on the history and the products that were available at that time, how they came up with that idea, right? I liken that to saying, when I studied jazz guitar, right? My jazz professors, or at Northeastern, there was Bill Lowe and Mr. Brown and all these people, they had an incredible effect on me, studying jazz guitar. In fact, I discovered this playing jazz solos of Charlie Parker and Miles Davis, trying to transcribe them on my guitar. That's part of where this comes from, which I talk about in the book, right? When I would play their solos, I would understand how they were articulating the chord change and the progression, and how they were using the arpeggio and chromatic scales to get through that particular chord change. And I would literally inhale the thought process and the lexicon of jazz soloing, of the blues, by transcribing their solos. And once I played a few of their solos, right, once I would play through those jazz solos, I get it. It's almost like it's very similar to doing combinations in boxing and understanding that rhythm, and then being able to do them yourself when you're in a sparring scenario. It's the same exact process, right? But nobody tells you this when you're studying engineering. They don't tell you this, and I'm sure they know this. But why are they going to tell you so you can go out there and be successful? They're not going to tell you. They don't tell you. So let me get it. So there are 4 hemispheres. What I'm saying is there are 4 hemispheres to any technology. whether it's cryptocurrency or artificial intelligence or robotics or computer coding or anything, any genre, right? Autonomous vehicles. There are 4 elements, if you will, or hemispheres to all technology. And these tools here, labeled 1, 2, this logic statement, 3, the model, the unicorn model, which is the goal to teach them how to use this logic statement, create a new disruptive innovation, and then put it in this model it out, and turn it into a unicorn company. These 4 tools will equip them to be able to do this in any and every industry, any technological genre, so this is a universal toolkit for not only creating the disruptor, but turning it into a unicorn company. That's what I'm professing that I'm offering your students. And I've drawn them out here to say that in this lecture series context, ideally, it would be best if we did them one at a time, starting with number 1. Right? This is likened to a matrix. In engineering, you'll see, and they would run us through all these different matrices, and they would, we would just be trying to hopscotch through the form. We didn't know what they were, all right? But when you get out into the real world and you see these things, you start to understand how they translate to real life applications. And this is a great way of preparing kids, not just whether they're in college or high school or junior high school, to be able to understand this before they get there. Like Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg, or people like Bill Gates, who Bill Gates incidentally was doing the computer. He designed the accounting packages for his high school before he even got to college. Right? They know this before they get to college. Either they have parents to tell them, or they have an engineer in their family. Somebody told them this before they got there. I remember being in college, and you would see some kid from Texas sitting there having a conversation with the professor when the rest of us were completely confused because his father was an engineer. So he came to college knowing this. Right? Everything the professor was teaching him in college, excuse me, everything the professor was teaching us in college was a refresher for these kids. They didn't drop out. They were just hanging out, having fun, having conversations with the professor. The test for us, for me, kids like me, was a nightmare. For him, it was just another walk in the park, all right? So what we're professing is to go through these individual components of this formula, and this is in the book, and get them to understand what money is. That's where we would start off, the lead-in. The seduction of this is that we're saying we can use these tools to make a money machine, Dr. Gilbert, all right? And a machine, engineers think of a machine as, and this is the machine, the unicorn model, if you will, with an input and an output. The input here is information, and the output is money. And there's actually money in the formula. All right, this formula is, as I say here, a speedometer for how fast this model produces its output, which is money. So to get back to, and this is not just native to engineering. This is something that your kids, whether they're studying literature or whether they're studying music or whatever their major is, they can use these universal tools that are proprietary. I created these, right, to disrupt any industry that they're in, right? That's very seductive for them. And remember, the seduction of this, the reason why this works and why this is, in my opinion, a no-brainer, is because we're telling them, we're teaching them to make a money machine, which presents its own advantages and challenges, because it seems so good. It seems too good to be true. So the kids might be saying to themselves, I don't believe this. This just doesn't sound, it sounds too good to be true. So selling it to them so that they come to these symposiums is part and parcel of the challenge, which I've overcome in my tenure doing this with offering them something free or some sort of a catch, like a prize at the end. I don't know if you want to go that far, or free food. Or free food gets college kids, all right, because that's all kids are doing, is trying to figure out who's going to feed me next. After I go to class, who's going to feed me, all right? So I think free food, having a buffet of food and advertising it that way will get them to come down. Treat them like executives. I think that would be a good way, a good first start, right? So what I'm proposing is that we first start off teaching them what money is. Money is value over time. And you hear people talk about value, value add, value proposition, valuation, stock market valuations, all of these cliches about what money is and how money and value are somehow linked, but nobody tells you how. Well, they do. They only tell the salespeople and the stockbrokers who know this, who know what value is, valuation, value proposition, all of these terms. How this is what value is. The engineers create the value, and the salespeople sell it. In any company, right? And again, these 4 tools will give your students the ability to see that in any industry. So we first start off with value, right? And we teach the kids what money is through the lens of value, which is just a monumental thing. Put them right into the world of finance. Because remember, they're going to create products that have never been seen before. That's what a disruptor is. It's some new product that's going to change the game. That's going to get a billion-dollar valuation. Well, how are you going to do that? How are you going to quantify this product's value to the tune of $1 billion, which is what a unicorn company is, a company doing $1 billion in sales in its first year? How are you going to do that when the product has never been sold? A lot of these unicorn companies have never turned a profit. Amazon was $1 billion valuation and it never made a profit. There are many companies like that being traded on the stock market. So 6 times earnings is not the be-all, end-all tool to quantify value that it's described as. There's something deeper, and it's this. Right? So that is a monumental thing. Just giving and there's a whole, I literally have 30 lessons that I go through, teaching students to write TV commercials and doing all sorts of things, injecting it into the logic statement to figure out how to come up to transcribe the process of innovation. I have 30, 40 lessons that I could walk your students through just with this one tool. And that goes for each one of these 4 components of this. So these 4 tools here that I've created come together as an assembly to make the disruptor and the unicorn company, like AI or like NVIDIA. All right? So what I'm proposing, and I don't mean to be long-winded, but I want to explain to you why I'm proposing what I'm proposing so you can understand the thought process of it, is that each seminar, what I charge is $2,000 per seminar. So we would break this out into a seminar of 4, where I would literally show up to your university 4 times. We could do it 4 times in a row. We could do it 4 times over the course of a month. Whatever you see fit. I think the frequency is very important, because what we don't want to do is bring them in and have them and get them all excited, which happens a lot, and then they don't see me anymore. That's like up, down, up, down. We want to get them up to a certain altitude and then keep it consistent, right? So this, I would say the perfect frequency would be 1 a week. That's what I would say would be really beneficial to the kids, right? And then after this, after we've gone through these seminars with your students and it starts to pick up steam, and we give them the audio book and a softcover book and they have it in their hand, and they see that, wow, Clark Atlanta University really wants us to make money. They want us to be wildly successful. Of course we do, right? They're going to start telling their friends, and by the 4th seminar, we should have a packed house. if we market this and do this properly. Right? And they start bringing their friends. Like, yeah, they're trying to tell us about how to make money. They're going to recruit their friends.